Good afternoon and welcome back to Toastmasters District 56's annual conference. My name is David Rebellis and it is my privilege to introduce our next presenter. Mohamed Qayoom, International Director, Region 5, has been a member of Toastmasters since 2013, with his home club being Naturally Nolans in Metairie, Louisiana. He has held a number of high-profile leadership positions within Toastmasters and holds the designation of Distinguished Toastmaster. As a member of the Toastmasters International Board of Directors, Mohamed is a working ambassador for our organization. Working with his fellow board members, Mohamed is a working ambassador for our organization. Working with his fellow board members, he works to develop and support the policies and procedures that guide Toastmasters International in fulfilling its mission to empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. In his professional life, Mohamed is a manager in the technology and security operations at PricewaterhouseCoopers International Limited. In his role, he provides a flexible portfolio of information systems management and services developed through hands-on architectural expertise. Mohamed holds a master's degree in computer science and engineering management from the University of New Orleans. He is a certified information systems security professional and a project management professional. When asked about Toastmasters, Mohamed replied, "Whether it's a college student preparing for a professional life, a professional striving to succeed in their career, or an inmate trying to turn their life around, Toastmasters can benefit everyone." Please help me welcome our next speaker, International Director, Region 5, Distinguished Toastmaster, Mohamed Qayoom.
Thank you, past District Governor, Distinguished Toastmaster Rebellis, dignitaries, past international presidents, Dolly, and Barnhill, trio members, past region advisors, and welcome guests. How many of you are Toastmasters here? There's a chat feature, and I would like you to answer that. Just want to gauge the audience and see who's here. Yes, me, excellent, excellent. A couple of Toastmasters. I just want to make sure I clicked on the right link. There you go. Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. Do we have anyone who's not a Toastmaster? Toastmasters for life, very good. Excellent, all Toastmasters. I had some applications with me just in case someone was not a Toastmaster yet. I've been in Toastmasters for a few years. And like many of you, Toastmasters has provided me many opportunities to grow, opportunities to connect with others, and opportunities to build long-lasting relationships. Now, when we look at the mission of our clubs, hopefully all of us remember the mission of our clubs, or we can look at the agendas. We provide a supportive and positive learning environment in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in, and this is when you participate, resulting in and I'm looking for some answers in the chat window. Yes, greater self-confidence and personal growth. Excellent, excellent. You see, when you have the greater self-confidence and personal growth, you can go out and change the world. How do you build connections? How do you build relationships? Well, first of all, you have to meet people, right? Well, for me, sometimes I build relationships with computers, very good relationships. But most of them don't talk back. So I'm good there. But I realize it's also important to build relationships with people, to connect with people. So how do you do that? How do you connect with people? As Toastmasters, we do have some opportunities. So audience members, where do you go if you want to meet new Toastmasters? If you want to make new connections? Well, you go to your club. Where else do you go to? All right, Storyteller Toastmaster conferences. Yes, just like this conferences, training, conferences. You go to your clubs, other clubs, visit around the world. Now you have the opportunity to visit anywhere in the world. You see, Toastmasters has provided me many opportunities to visit places where I never thought I would be visiting the places. See, I've been to college. Well, yes, I did go to college when I was getting a degree, but because of Toastmasters, I've been to colleges, hospitals, airports, big corporations, mosques. Well, I go to mosques too regularly, synagogues, churches, and prison. Well, prison, yes, it was because of Toastmasters. Don't think I went to prison for some other reason. I went there for Toastmasters. We have several prison clubs in Toastmasters, so I had the opportunity to go to one of the clubs. You know, as you will visit all these places because of Toastmasters, we get the opportunity to meet new people, build connections. I'll share an example of a connection that I made. And this is one of the prison clubs. Do you have any prison? Anyone has been to any prison clubs here in the audience? Okay, if you have not been to a prison club, yes, past international president has visited a prison club. If you have not been to a prison club, I highly encourage you to visit one of the clubs because they have the best meetings. There's a very famous story in one of in our district. One of the past district governor went to a prison club meeting. He didn't have the mission of the club memorized, and they told him not to come back until he has the club mission memorized. And then all of the district leaders now have the club mission memorized because of that incident. But they have the best meetings. There was a member in one of our prison clubs. His name was Wayne. When we are in prison Toastmasters club, it's like any regular Toastmasters club, very high quality. One day I received an email from Wayne. And I had known Wayne because of my visits. In that email, Wayne told me that in the next month or so, he had a parole hearing. And he really wanted me, I was serving as the district director at the time, he really wanted me and a few other members of the district to be present during the parole hearing. Now, the place of the hearing was almost an hour from my home. Now, those of you who are in Houston, an hour is not a big deal. But for someone who lives in a small town like New Orleans, an hour is a long drive. So when I saw his email to participate in the parole hearing, this was a very unique opportunity for me. And I was not sure if I was going to do it or not. So I reached out to one of my past district governor and I asked him, I said, Jeff, do you think I should visit this? I should be there? And Jeff said, you don't want to miss this opportunity. So fellow Toastmaster, I decided to be present there to support him. It was important for Wayne. During that hearing, on my left-hand side were all of the judges. We were sitting in the middle of the room, and on my right-hand side was Wayne, who was appearing via video conference. That hearing lasted 15 to 20 minutes. During that hearing, I recognized the power, the true power of Toastmaster, how Toastmasters can transform individuals. You know, Wayne had been serving his time for many decades. And during his time, he joined Toastmasters. You know how he got in? Was his inability to communicate. But now, as Toastmaster, he had mastered the art of communication. He had learned how to listen, how to talk, how to control his thoughts and feelings. During that hearing, we got to see a changed person. And I'm not going to give Toastmasters all the credit for this, but Toastmasters, as he admitted, had a huge role in his transformation. By the end of the meeting, there was not a single eye in the room that was not wet. It was such a powerful way to meet new people, to experience something new. You know, Wayne is now, and gladly, he is not in prison anymore, and he is a very productive member of the society. But you know, if this was not because of Toastmaster, I would have not experienced that. I would have not been able to contribute to this particular cause. That's the power of Toastmasters. You know, in Toastmasters, we connect, we communicate, and we collaborate with each other to change our world. And that's how we make the difference. That's how we do. And that's why we do what we do. All of the officers, all of the leaders, all of your club members are responsible for making this difference. You know, I also learned that in Toastmasters, we build connections. When we build connections, to build connections, we really have to know people. And to know people, we have to listen. Now, all of you in Toastmasters, my fellow Toastmasters, does Toastmaster teach us how to listen? Yeah, just anytime a table topics master is asking the question, we just listen, because you just never know who's going to get that question, right? We listen. We listen very intently. We listen in Toastmasters to understand. And when someone is giving speeches, we listen to their stories. And that's a very important part in building connections, building those relationships. You know, sometimes at work, just sometimes, I get into a situation, and if you work in a technology field, you'll find people who are just trying to get their point across without listening. And at that point, I think about my Toastmasters club, and I think about, why can't they just all be Toastmasters? The meetings would be so much productive if people just listen to each other. But in Toastmasters, we learn how to listen. I remember a time when we were helping start a club. It was a bilingual club, a bilingual English and Spanish club. They named their club Best Bilingual English and Spanish Toastmasters Club, Best Club. And as we were helping that club, we attended many meetings. And I remember there was a young lady who was a member of that club. And as I continued to get to know her, I realized where she worked, what she did, and just got to know her on a very personal basis. She was working in an organization that helped people who were struggling with, how should I say this? They were helping people who were struggling in this country, mostly people who were immigrating. And as an immigrant to this country, I know some of those challenges. So she was part of a group that helped the community and made people from other communities welcome. And during my meeting with her, we'll call her Jay. Jay gave many speeches about her role. She talked about her passion for helping people. And I knew her. And I saved her number without expecting anything in return. But I knew her, and she knew who I was. 2 years later, one day, I was chatting with another young lady, and she was helping her father with some work that he was doing. So I asked her, I said, tell me about yourself. Tell me about the school you go to. Tell me about your grade. And she was in 11th grade, and she told me about math, and she said like how she's not understanding what they're teaching in the class. And we were just chatting about it. And I offered her, I said, well, if you need help, let me know. I happen to just have a degree in mathematics, and I'll be happy to help you. I'll be, because I truly want to help people who want to get better in life. So many others have helped me, and I try to do my part when I can. So I was talking to this young lady, and my next question was, look, you're in 11th grade. You know what's next? College. Are you planning to go to college? Her response made my heart hurt a little bit. She said, no, I can't go to college. I said, what do you mean you can't go to college? She said, I do not have the papers, and I cannot get admission in college. And I didn't know that part. I didn't know that there is that requirement to go to college. You know, at that time, I wanted to help her. And I knew what Jay was doing. So I called her. And I said, hey, Jay. And she said, hey, Mohamed. I said two things. Either I have a very memorable voice, or you have my number saved. She said, oh, it's the latter. I said, okay, well, I'm calling you because I need help. I need help from you. I'm talking to this young lady. She wants to go to college. But she says that she doesn't have the papers she needs. So Jay said, is she undocumented? I said, oh, I didn't use the word. I didn't ask her. Why don't you talk to her? So I got both of them connected, and they both were talking to each other. And at the end of the call, that young lady who was only in 11th grade had no hope to go to college one day. I could see in her face that she had hope now. After speaking with Jay, she knew that she could do better than many others. You know, Jay is not a Toastmaster anymore. She spent time in Toastmasters. She received what she was looking for from Toastmasters. But it was the connection that I had made with her that helps someone else. You know, in Toastmasters, we build bridges. And sometimes those bridges are not for us. You know, that young lady was able to take advantage of what I had gained from Toastmasters. And like many of you, when we are in meetings, we get to know the people who are in the meeting with us. We don't just go to the meeting because we want something from Toastmasters. You know, just being in that club allowed me to know Jay at a very personal level, allowed me to know what she does and how she helps people. And that's how you connect. You communicate and you collaborate. You know, I'm sure many of you have done something similar. And there are others who have done something like this for me. When I was new in the country, there was someone who helped me. And as Toastmasters, we have that power. We have the ability to help so many people. When you help people, when you build connections, there's one skill that I have learned in Toastmasters, from my experience in Toastmasters, that I try to practice a lot. This skill helps me grow every day. These skills help me create better connections, gain trust, and be a better team member. Now, when you go give a speech in a Toastmasters club, your very first speech, an icebreaker. Like if you're like me, you probably were sweating at the time, you were shaking, and you didn't know how you were going to get to the 6-minute mark or 4-minute mark. You know, that's a very important time in someone's life. And there's a very important lesson you learn when you're doing that. And that's the importance of being vulnerable. That's the importance of letting people know that, you know, I have a speech, but I can use your help. I'm not perfect and I want to grow. And when we help others, I still remember my evaluator, the very first speech. And then every time someone evaluated my speeches, they helped me grow. But before that time, I had to embrace vulnerability. I had to say, look, I need help. All of us do this in Toastmasters. We are open to suggestions. We're open to feedback from others. I remember there was a conference being held in our district, just a conference such as this, but this was a long time ago when we used to have in-person conferences. It was a Friday, and on my way back from work, I remember I took off at 2 p.m. and as I was driving home, I called the conference chair just to see how everything was going. I called the conference chair and I said, hey, how's it going? Can I help you with anything? Is there anything that's left? On the other side, she sounded very upset. If you have ever been a conference chair, you know sometimes things don't go as planned. And in this case, despite all of the time they had spent planning and organizing and checking all of the boxes to make sure everything was right, there was just one hiccup. And that problem was that the conference was supposed to start in 4 hours, and they were waiting to get the printouts from Office Depot. And the Office Depot, the person who was helping her, said the printouts, the handouts would not be available until 6 p.m. the next day. That's a problem. That means there's no agenda, there's no recognition program, and there were many ballots and whatnot that were not available for this conference. And she asked me for help, and I offered. I said, how can I help you? And she said, we just want this. And I told her, I said, you know, I'll take care of this. You know, sometimes we do say that, I'll take care of this, without even knowing how you're going to take care of it. Right, so I had to plan. I had to figure out what to do. As I was driving, I was thinking about maybe I can just go to Office Depot and say, what do you mean? I'm your customer, and customer is always right. And your customer needs this now. How can you not print? But I remember reading a book. Actually, I remember reading 2 books during the past 2 weeks. One was Brené Brown. She's your She lives in Texas, so most of you probably know her. Do you know Brene Brown or have read her work? Yeah, we see some yeses. Good. Yeah, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability and how powerful it is to just accept our vulnerabilities. And I also remember reading a book. The author's name was Chris Voss, and the title was Never Split the Difference. And they both talk about the same subject. They both talk about vulnerability and how to accept that you need help from someone. You know, it's the relationship I had built with the conference chair that helped her to say, I need help. It's the relationship that enabled her to be vulnerable. Right? And that's what we do in Toastmasters. So I decided to go to that Office Depot. Now, if you've been to Office Depot, I'm not sure if it's the same everywhere, but in our Office Depot, we have a section where they do printing. It's in the back of the store where they have all the copy machines, printing machines, big printers, packaging, and whatnot. So, and I had used the Office Depot many times. So I go to the counter, and as I'm standing in the line, I can see how busy they are. I can see their machines are constantly printing these papers and I can smell the fresh scent of the copy. And as I get to the person who is going to help me, I decided to start with, I've made a huge mistake. I need your help. And if you don't help me today, I don't know what my next action is going to be. You know, as I said that, he started to listen to me. I showed him that I was vulnerable. I showed him that, you know what, he was in a position to help me. And he said, what can I do for you? I said, look, I know it's my mistake. We sent you some documents to print, and I know you're very busy right now. But if we don't get these documents within the next 2 hours, we have a conference planned and we'll have a huge problem. So he is now willing to help me. So he opens up his email with all of the attachments and he looks at the list of all of the documents that we need printed. Like 200 copies of this document, double-sided, 200 copies of this document, single-sided, stapled, 200 copies of this doc, and the list goes on, and there were 9 separate items. So he looked at this document or email, and he said, look, I really want to help you. I do. But my shift is going to be over in 20 minutes, and I don't think I can help you. I'm so sorry. You know, the other person who's working, she's also busy. So at that time, I looked at an Office Depot employee who was standing far away. I looked at that person and I told this other guy I was talking to, I said, hey, look, that guy who's standing there, I don't think he's being very productive. He's just standing there. Do you think he can make some copies? It's very simple. And so that this guy says, well, he's the manager. I don't know if he can make copies. So I reach out to this person. His name is David. You know, David is the manager of this Office Depot. And I don't know if he had made copies before or not, but I go to David and I start with this. David, I've made a huge mistake and I need your help. Same thing. I made sure David knew that he's doing a favor. He's helping me. And David said, how can I help? I said, David, do you know how to print? Do you know how to make some copies? And David said, well, I don't do it, but what's up? So I explained the situation to David. And at that point, David walks with me to the place where they were making the copies. And David started printing. He looked at all the documents and he started printing. And almost an hour later, I walked out of that Office Depot with a big stack of papers, feeling like I had conquered the entire world, victorious, because I had those copies. I called the conference here from my car and I said, you know what? It's done. I have all the copies you need. You know what I learned that day is my experience in Toastmasters. How we conduct ourselves in our meetings. Let me show my side where I was vulnerable. That's the power of Toastmasters. You know, now David, anytime I go to Office Depot and David is there, he knows who I am. And I look at him and he says, hey, what's going on? You haven't been here in a long time. So we just chat about anything. I talk about how's the day, or how's the season, how busy he is, but we built that connection. You know, David is not a Toastmaster, or should I say not yet. I'm working on it. I'm sure some of you are judging me like, what's taking you so long? It's a process, you know. But my time in Toastmaster helped me build this connection with someone who's not a Toastmaster. Someone went out of their way to help me. And that's what we learn in Toastmaster, right? We learn how to connect. We learn how to communicate. And then collaborate. These are the connections that we build. You know, this is just one Toastmaster, me. Many of you have hundreds of examples like this where you used one of the skills you learn in Toastmasters that help you in your life. You know, at work, in school, colleges, churches, many of us are connecting with others because of the skills we learn in Toastmasters, the skills that we practice in Toastmasters. When we connect with people, when we build these long-term connections, these relationships, it's important to trust someone so that you go out of way to help them. And one thing that I have learned is the values of Toastmasters. Now, this is your quiz. What are the 4 values of Toastmasters? 4 values of Toastmasters: respect, integrity, service, excellence, integrity, respect, service, and excellence. Madam Region Advisor, excellent. You know, I also have those values on my background, just in case, right? These are the values we learn in Toastmasters. And we have our personal values too, right? Do we have anyone who has a value that's different than Toastmasters? Right? Values, integrity, respect, service, excellence, any other values? Accountability, yes, accountability. What other values? Care, yes, care, excellent, David. Trust. So we build, when we are Toastmasters, I've always had values, right? But when I joined Toastmaster, I started hearing more about the values. You know, you go to a corporation, many big corporations have their values, and you ask them, like, what are your values? I can guarantee you'll find some people who work in the corporations who are not going to understand or know the values of that corporation. And most of the time when I visit corporations, I see their values are very similar to Toastmasters values. But as Toastmasters, we have a very sharp focus on Toastmasters values and our own personal values. I have one value or principle where I work in IT, and a lot of times we interact with vendors where we're buying things or we're looking at proposals, and sometimes these vendors would like to take us to lunch, dinner, and try to buy lunch or buy dinner for us. One of the values I practice, whether I'm allowed to do it, but I never accept lunch, dinner, or anything from any of the vendors, which could just give a perception that perhaps it influenced my decision. And that's a value, that's a principle that I practiced a lot. I remember a time when I was in Las Vegas attending a conference. I was attending a security conference. And there are several reasons to attend the conference. The number one reason is you learn about new technology, new products, new features. There's that opportunity for networking. And then vendors also have the opportunity to meet with the clients, to take them to lunch, dinner, whatnot. So I remember this time when one of the vendors invited me, and I think 5 or 6 other folks, to dinner. Now, this was Las Vegas, and Las Vegas, everything is fancy, big restaurants, big meals, high ticket dinners. So he invited me to this dinner, and I wanted to go because I wanted to network with the people who were part of that group. I wanted to hear their ideas. I wanted to know what they were working on. So I told the vendor, I told Mark, I'll go with you, but I have one condition. I will pay for my own meal. You know, he heard that and he's like, I guess you can do it. Right? So I made it very clear. So that particular dinner, everyone ordered steaks, and I don't eat meat outside. I have certain dietary restrictions, and I ordered a salad. And it was good meeting, good conversation, great opportunities for networking, and the bill came, and we split the bill 6 ways. Most expensive salad I've ever had in my life. But you know, I paid for my meal that day. You know, it was very important for me to practice my values. And I noticed that after that day, Mark and I had a different type of connection. He saw something, right? He saw something where he was willing to open up with me. He was willing to share more information with me. I remember one day I was driving to work and Mark called me. He is from Canada, right? So he was calling and he was talking about my father, and he was asking questions. And he was asking about his mom, and his mom is in Canada, and he was asking, like, if his mom comes, how is she going to get healthcare? The point is, we connected at a different level. And Mark and I became very good friends. And last year, when Mark heard that I was leaving my employer at the time, he was the first person to call me, and he said, why don't you come work for my company? We have all these opportunities. You know, I didn't ask Mark for that, but he called me when he heard that. I thanked him. I said, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you so much for this. This means a lot to me, but I have other plans, right? So Mark knew me. He connected with me because I had learned from Toastmasters how to practice my values, how to uphold my values. It doesn't matter what the situation was. And that's what we do in Toastmasters. You know, just the name Toastmaster holds a lot of power. If someone sees you're a Toastmaster, they know you're a good person. That's the value of Toastmaster. And when we practice those values, we connect with others and we collaborate with others. You know, there are so many instances when I reach out to people because I know they're Toastmasters. And many of you, when you need something, you need a new realtor, you need an insurance quote, and you have the option to go to a Toastmaster, you would probably go to that Toastmasters because you trust them. That's how we communicate. That's how we collaborate. You know, when we are in Toastmasters, we build bridges. And we don't build bridges because we need to travel on those bridges. We don't build relationships because we need something back from someone. No, we build bridges long before we ever think we're going to travel on those bridges. And sometimes we never use those bridges, but it's the bridges, the connections we make. You know, when you build the relationships, whether it's an inmate who's reaching out to you for help, whether it's a conference chair who's reaching out to you, whether it's a young student who you're helping, it's the power of Toastmasters, the connections we build in Toastmasters. So think about how we can use this platform, not Zoom, Toastmasters, what we do in our clubs, to open doors, to help others, to transform the world. That's the power of Toastmasters. Today, there are no boundaries. There are no limitations. We have a unique opportunity now to build this global community, to build these bridges, to transform lives. We live in a world, especially now, where we have so many things that may possibly divide us. You have race, region, religion, that may potentially divide us. But Toastmasters is what unites us. It provides us this unique opportunity today to change the world. You know, as leaders, as members of the club, when you work on your path, when you work on the program, you are building the relationships. You're making these connections. You know, our paths in Toastmasters may be different, but our journey is the same. If we connect, communicate, and collaborate with each other, we have the opportunity to reach others, to teach others, and to transform the world. Any questions? All right, let's open it up for questions.
I will keep an eye on the chat, Mohammed. So Well, everyone, if you have a question, please do not hesitate to type your question in the chat box. Mohammed, I have one while we're waiting though.
Sure.
So what is the hardest connection that you've had to make and why?
What is the hardest connection I had to make and why? Oh, the hardest connection that I have to make, and I struggle with it, but it's a very important connection, and it's the most important connection in my life, is connection with my children. You know, just when you realize you know your children, just when you know that, yeah, you know what, I figured it out. They change all the time. And it's just so difficult to get in their head and to think about, like, what is it that you want? My daughter right now is 11. Then I have an 8-year-old, and then my youngest son is 2. So I have a lot to work with right now. And I think those are the most important connections. The most important role I have, maybe the second most, is being a father, right? And those are the very important connections in my life. And you know, some of the skills that I've learned from Toastmasters, I try to use the skills, right? I try to use the sandwich approach, right? Like, yeah, good job cleaning up your room. You still haven't done your homework. What's wrong, right? And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. But I think that's the most important connection in my life. And sometimes I struggle with that connection, though.
I can completely understand. All right, I'm still monitoring chat. Everyone is shy today. I'm not so sure why, Mohammed. You're such a very personal person, and I loved your story. So
Well,
everyone, please.
I was in Houston a couple of weeks ago, visiting Houston. We had a great time in Houston, enjoyed the food. My brother lives in Houston.
Ah, okay.
You may ask me if he's a Toastmaster.
Is he a Toastmaster?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I will say this, and I will challenge you on this too, Mohammed. So while you were telling your story, and you spoke very eloquently about the challenges of the conference and those printouts, I feel your pain because that happened to me, and I was able to pick up an item 30 minutes before my conference started. So I can definitely relate. But the question that I had, or actually it's a suggestion, is when you go back to Office Depot and try to encourage them, a name that you might want to throw out to them is "At Your Service, Toastmasters." Right? It goes with the service of Office Depot. It rolls off the tongue, beautifully done. It looks beautiful in print. I can see it on the banner already.
Yeah. So I see a question, Pamela.
Okay.
Pamela asked a question.
And the question is, the best benefit from Toastmasters membership is the opportunity to build relationships that last a lifetime. Have you met someone you consider a true confidant and friend for life?
Absolutely. No doubt. I don't even have to think like a split second about it. Yes. My mentors are my true confidants. If my car breakdowns at 3 a.m., those are the people who are getting calls from me. And those are the people who I expect them to call me if they need me. So yes, Toastmasters has provided that type of relationship. No doubt.
Great.
Good question. Good question.
Great question. Any other questions?
So if no questions, I would just like to say this. You know, what we do in Toastmasters, we can't do this alone. We need all of us to work together to build these relationships. Starts at the club level. Now, if we don't have the club members that are there when you first walk into the door, if you don't have the leaders who serve as an area director, division director, district director, we are not going to get that outcome from Toastmasters. And for that, I thank all of you who are here. to have that impact on our society. You know, the work we are doing right now, whether you're a club member, whether you're a district officer, region advisor, the work we're doing right now, I guarantee you that our future us are going to thank us.
And
our future generations are going to thank us. And together, we can make this world a better place where there's so much negativity. Toastmasters is that hope, that light.
Now, Mohamed, a question did come in under the question and answer panel. I did open it. And so what I wanted to do is I was just going to read it out to you and let's give you an opportunity to think about it. The speech was very well prepared. I love what you said about vulnerability. How long do you prepare for your speeches?
It depends on the speech. It depends on the speech. Some speeches are more prepared. Some speeches are not as prepared. But it's not about speech. When I first joined Toastmasters, I was more about body language. Here's the sign. Here's what you should do. Here's how you should change the vocal variety. And I worked on all of that. But now I tend to communicate. I tend to connect with people. And I try to be authentic, right? So it takes time to prepare speeches. It takes time to say, what's the message that I want to deliver? It takes time to figure out like how the message is going to be delivered, right? So all of that takes a little time. But there's no set amount of time. It's sometimes what's the message I'm trying to deliver and what's the best way to deliver the message? What's the story I need to share to deliver that message? I see there's some recruiting going on here.
There are some. There's so one of our past distinguished district directors, district governors, encouraged you to send your brother to Talk of the Town Toastmasters Club 4969. A great shout out. I would also like to invite your brother now, he as long as he's a member of another club. Storytellers Toastmasters, we meet the first Thursday of every month. Our next meeting is going to be next Thursday at 7 p.m. A shameless plug, but I do encourage everyone to reach one, teach one, so that we can keep one. Right, Madam District Director?
Absolutely.
And with that, it is 5:24. We do have a few minutes if anyone wants to. I don't know if there's any more questions, or Mohamed, would you like to just have a few minutes to just decompress and we can wait for our next session?
Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you so much for inviting me, the conference chairs, everyone who worked so hard for the conference. A huge shout out to you. I mean, I was watching the app, Whova, there's so much engagement, there's so much participation. I love it. Great job with organizing the conference. Congratulations to all of the future leaders. And take this opportunity to build a better you and to transform the world.
Mohamed, it's been my privilege to serve as your moderator. I will now yield control to our current distinguished Toastmaster, Rose Bradford.
Well, thank you, Mohamed. That was awesome. Someone made mention in the chat that they love the way you present. They love the way you take your time, develop your thought, and how you use your pauses for effectiveness. I'm going to work on that. Thank you for that, because that's one thing we do. We can still shamelessly, right? Whatever can make you better. So thank you today for presenting with us, for taking the time to spend with us during this conference.
Thank you.
I think our time is up.
And just a reminder to everyone before you leave, our conference will continue. Our next presentation will be in the other room. It will start with our international speech contest. Please make sure that you close out of this session and then go into the other link from the Whova app, and it will be the next presentation. Thank you all. for attending this session, and we look forward to seeing you at the International Speech Contest at 5:35.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.